Back with you on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. YouTube.com. Put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your search browser. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a review. Give us a comment. Tell us what you think about the show. Don't forget, we are free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can download us there, Spotify, Odyssey, all of your favorite platforms. And follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. We mentioned that the Braves did win yesterday, and that was good news without getting swept in Arizona, and they get ready to take on the Rockies right now. The guy that has really also, we talked about Contreras here a few minutes ago, the guy that's also been outstanding this year for the Atlanta Braves has been Kyle Wright, who is now sitting at 5-3 on the season, a 2.41 ERA in 10 starts, 59 and 2/3 innings pitched with 66 strikeouts. So he's sitting at 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, almost 3 strikeouts to walks ratio out there. His whip is 1.073. He's been terrific this year. Now, let me get into this discussion by prefacing everything, okay? I'm not foolish enough to ever think that we're going to see another big three of Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox. You're never going to have 300 game winning, one whatever Smoltz had, couple of hundred wins, 100 something. Say, you're never going to see three guys be around one another long enough to put up those kinds of numbers. That's a once in a lifetime, not once in a generation. That's a once in a lifetime thing. We'll never see that again. But maybe this is the next big three. Now, we probably thought a couple of years ago Mike Soroka was going to be part of that because he was outstanding. And remember a few years ago when they played the Cardinals in the playoffs that year, he had the best adjusted ERA in Major League Baseball. He was outstanding. But it's been back seasons of season ending for Mike Soroka. Yeah, he's working his way back. But can I tell you that the idea of building around Mike Soroka, if you get Soroka back and he can give you something, great. But I can tell you, as a general manager and as a guy putting my ball club together, the last thing I'm doing is putting eggs into the basket of Mike Soroka and saying, okay, kid, we're going to jump on your back and ride you out of all of that. But you've got Max Fried, Kyle Wright, and Ian Anderson. Now, I know all three of these guys are really young, and things can always change on a dime with starting pitching in baseball, right? But Charlie Morton is a guy getting older. You haven't figured out some of what your back end rotation is. You don't feel like you're set at your fifth starter, okay? Morton's here probably this year and next year. And to be honest with you, these 2 years are probably Morton's last years. I think you're starting to see that, okay, it's not that Morton is completely ineffective, but he's probably in his last, couple of years. And for an organization that has prided itself on pitching and prided itself on developing its pitching through its minor league system, right? How do the Braves draft? The Braves always, by and large, they draft mostly pitching. Their philosophy has been for the last handful of years to draft a lot more pitching, and then they find a lot more of their bats in an international pool. So you've spent all this capital and resources to try to find these starting guys. And maybe they've finally gotten that with Wright, Anderson, and Max Fried. And Max Fried looks like he's that leader in that clubhouse. Now, just like everything when it comes to baseball, and starting pitching, there is a premium on all of that. And this is where it will get interesting as, Max Fried, who's the veteran, if you will, of this group, starts getting through some of his arbitration years. Is he a guy that they will lock down long term? But we'll worry about that and kick that can down the road when the time comes. But maybe the Braves have their next big three with Kyle Wright, with Max Fried, and Ian Anderson. And in a time in baseball when starting pitching is so valuable and it's so hard to develop and keep good starting pitching, think about all of the guys the Braves have gone through this last handful of years, right? I mean, just go in the last 5 years. How many guys have they brought up? I've joked about it. The Partridge Family bus, right? You get the all natural gas because you don't want to burn all the fossil fuel. So you got a all natural gas Partridge Family bus that goes from Buford the Gwinnett Braves and Buford, Lawrenceville, whatever, but let's call it Buford because that sounds better than Lawrenceville. From Buford to whatever, Smyrna over there, you've got this bus that's just going back and forth, right? And they're singing and they're on the bus and all that kind of stuff. It's the Partridge Family bus, just making all these trips from Buford to Smyrna, one right after the other. Think about how many pictures we've seen, right? I mean, we've just seen all these guys come up and down and Newcomb and Toussaint and this guy and that guy, right? Well, now maybe you think you've found at least 3 guys to build your rotation around. And that's a rare commodity in Major League Baseball, if you think about it. The Dodgers have done a pretty good job of that. Kershaw being really the long-term veteran. Walker Buehler's been a guy who came up through the organization as well. And then Urias, and they've mixed in a couple of other guys. So if you can have a group of 3 starting pitchers that are homegrown on one team, man, you're way ahead of the curve. Because think about how much top-tier starting pitching costs you in Major League Baseball. Look at the contract that Scherzer got. Even look for what Clayton Kershaw came back and played for a year or 2 on. Look at what guys like DeGrom are going to cost you. Look at when some of these guys win the Cy Young and then they bolt from their team and how much money that they get. R.A. Dickey was a guy that was a Cy Young winner, knuckleball pitcher, and got paid a fortune to go from Toronto and the Mets and all that. I mean, starting pitching is a premium in today's Major League Baseball. And if you can find 3 homegrown talent guys, you're way ahead of the curve. Now the question becomes, when do you pay them? We saw the idea of, okay, and I know it's different for pitchers than positional players because, again, pitchers can turn on a dime. It's like Mike Soroka. We thought he was going to be the best pitcher in the National League 3 years ago, and look where he's at now. Things can turn on a dime. We didn't see Max Fried taking the big jump and leap that he did from his first year to where he's at right now. Pitching is so fickle. But you saw this team lock up Ronnie and Ozzie and some guys to long-term deals. I'm not saying you're going to do that right now with Ian Anderson or with Kyle Wright. Fried will be coming up soon enough that you'll have to figure about, okay, what are we going to, pay him? But boy, if you can look at and say, I've got my next big 3, and I put that in relative terms. Again, nobody's ever going to be Glavine, Maddox, or Smoltz. But this is an organization that thinks they're going to win the World Series for a long time. The core of their team is young and going to be around. Olson's going to be here a long time. Ronnie and Ozzie are going to be here a long time. They expect Riley to be here for a long time, right? Even for right now, you've got Ozuna here for a few more years. You see Michael Harris is the future in center field, so you feel like you have another top flight prospect that you're going to put into the mix as well. And so for the fact that the Braves have what looks like could be emerging, and of course, as soon as I say this, Ian Anderson's pitching tonight. He'll probably get bombed for 15 runs. Max Fried is pitching this weekend. He'll probably get knocked around. You know what I mean? I don't want to put the Fanoinks and the jinx on everything, but the Braves may finally have their next big 3. And if that's the case, and you have 3 homegrown guys that you can put in your rotation, brother, you are way ahead of the curve, and it's going to keep you in contention for a long, long time. All right, we thank you for being a part of the show today. Thanks for making Hittin' Hard your first listen. We ask you to make our friends at ATL Day Ones your second listen. My buddies Jarvis Davis and Tanitra Batiste speak to all things at the heart of the city of Atlanta. They talk dogs, they talk Falcons, Braves, everything with you there. Great conversation between those two. Always interesting topics, some stuff that's outside the box as well. You can find them on our YouTube page as well. Just go to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Subscribe to that. You can find all of our shows there. They are also free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So download it, Spotify, Odyssey, whatever you like out there. So find them as well. We thank you so much for being a part of the show. Give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Back with you tomorrow here on Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.